Hello, hello, Eureka Whiskey Club members. Trevor here. Obviously, not calling you from my home bar this evening. I am on the road this week, so apologize for the hotel room background. But my my Uber canceled on me and had to wait an extra 15 minutes. And anyways, I run a little bit behind today, but I appreciate everyone being here. If you're joining us from Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram, welcome. This is our August edition of Eureka Whiskey Club, and we are excited to talk all things rabbit hole this evening. Lighting in here isn't as good as what I'm normally used to, but you guys should have the bottle. You should look at it in person. It looks better anyways. But we're going to be talking all things rabbit hole. Just a few housekeeping things going on. We are obviously at the end of August. We have an exciting month next month. We are releasing this month. We did release our Peerless pick. I believe every restaurant should receive anywhere from 6 to 12 bottles of that. If you're interested in that, I know some locations still do have product left. Excuse me. But we released our single barrel Peerless pick. We only bought one barrel, so number of bottles is pretty limited, but awesome pick. I think I mentioned this last time, but the Peerless pick that we released has this amazing dark fruit toasted marshmallow note on it that really stood out to me when I was picking barrels in Kentucky back in May. And next month we will be releasing, and we haven't done a full release, meaning the whiskey you get in your bag of Blanton's in a few years. We've done some barrel drops where you could buy a bottle in addition to the whiskey you get. But next month we are doing our full release of Blanton single barrel pick, and that will be the bottle you're getting next month. So really excited about that, and we're planning on talking to all things with Buffalo Trace again, all things Blanton's related. A few members have asked me about our Elmer T. Lee release, which will be an extremely allocated release. We haven't found out the yield on the bottle or the barrel that we selected as far as the number of bottles we're getting. So still TBD as far as who that will be available to, but that will be a tenured release, meaning it will have a requirement of how a certain amount of time you've had to be in the club to be eligible to purchase that bottle. But have been getting quite a few questions about that. So we're still waiting on that information. Hoping to get that as soon as possible. I was told that the barrel was supposed to be bottled earlier this month, and I'm just still waiting on Buffalo Trace to give me the final count on everything. So that's just some housekeeping things to take care of. Before we introduce our guest, I want to talk about the amazing prizes that Rabbit Hole has provided this evening to give away for the call. A lot of great feedback on this month. A lot of I've never had Rabbit Hole before. This is my first introduction to Rabbit Hole. It's amazing. I love the high rye bourbon. So really great to get all the positive feedback from our members that I've been hearing about. But we are going to be giving away some great prizes tonight. So get your questions ready. Jake also had our guest tonight is going to have all 7 of the barrels that we selected. So if you want him to give you tasting notes when we get to the tasting portion of the call, if you want him to give you his tasting notes on that particular barrel, once we get to that section, I'll ask for you to put in the comment section what barrel number you're tasting, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. As always, get your questions ready. We'll ask questions about the last 20 minutes of the call, and our guest will choose his favorite questions of the night. And the prizes we are giving away tonight are: the first place prize is a bottle from Rabbit Hole Founders Collection Series that's going to be signed by founder Kaveh Zamanian. And the second place prize will be a Rabbit Hole entertainment set featuring a cutting board, cheese knives, an apron, and a bar mat. So it's just some awesome Rabbit Hole branded swag that we're giving away tonight. So again, if you're joining us from YouTube or Facebook, you can go ahead and put your comments on those platforms. If you are not joining us from the name on your Facebook or YouTube account is not the same as your membership name, just go ahead and write your name that's associated with your membership before your question, so we can confirm that you are a member. And if by chance you're joining us and you're not a member, go look into joining. It's a great club, and we're always accepting new members. And with Blanton's coming up next month, membership should be limited. When anytime we do a big drop like that, we do see quite a few locations sell out. So go get your membership sooner rather than later. But thank you to all our loyal members that have been in the club for a long time. And if you're new here, this is your first month, this is your first time joining us, we do these once a month and talk to some awesome people in the whiskey industry about the featured whiskey of the month and the distillery. And you learn, I learn, we all have a good time. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce our guest this evening. His name is Jake Vollmer. He is the master blender at Rabbit Hole Distillery, and he is joining us live, I believe, from Louisville tonight. Is that correct, Jake?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, here in the executive office.
All right. it feels like I was there yesterday. I was there in May.
We were doing a tasting at this table.
Yeah, and I think I broke about 5 of the glass toppers that you guys have on the whiskey tasting glasses.
We got a bunch of those.
Yeah, Kaveh and Matt, I think by the time I broke my 3rd or 4th one, they were like, okay, I think this is getting a little out of hand. So luckily they didn't kick me out, and they let me still select all the awesome barrels that we picked this evening. But please introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do at Rabbit Hole, and just love to learn a little bit more about you.
Yeah. As Trevor mentioned, my name is Jake Vollmer. I've been in the industry for about 13, 14 years. I've always been in the Louisville, Kentucky area. Started my career over at Copper and Kings. You may have heard of them. Little American brand new distillery just around the corner. Did about 2.5 years there on kind of the processing, distilling. We were a lot of hands for a lot of work. So did a little bit of everything over there. Moved my career over to Angel's Envy. I was there for about 6 years. And I've been at Rabbit Hole about 5.5 now. Started off in processing, maturation specialist. So dealt with essentially all of the finishing projects. And I've been doing the blends here since about 2021. So it's been a fantastic career, fantastic run with Rabbit Hole. Great juice, great product, great company, great people. So awesome. I can't say more about it.
Oh, awesome. Great to learn a little bit more about you. Can you give us just a general background of Rabbit Hole, Kaveh's story, how it started, and how long the distillery's been in business? And you guys talk a lot about this philosophy of creation is personal. So maybe dive into what that philosophy means kind of inside of the distillery and how that kind of formed.
Yeah, absolutely. So the company itself came together in 2012. Kaveh met his wife, Heather. So just give you, I guess, a way back on Kaveh, not to tell his own personal story, but back in the 80s, he was in the Chicago area. He was a psychologist, came down to Louisville, spent some time here, traveling with friends, met his future wife, then Heather. She is local to Louisville, and I think they kind of sparked it off very quickly, and it kind of came a love affair of bourbon. And that's really where it all transpired. I think he kind of had this inkling that bourbon was the right avenue for him. So he left his profession, up and went out of Chicago, came down to Louisville, moved to be here and start this facility. And I think that was a conversation between them kind of sitting on the couch saying, where do we think this is going to go? And she said, well, you're leaving your career. You're going to go down the rabbit hole with this. So that's where the name kind of transpired from. That's where we're all at. It was starting just between a husband and wife, thinking about their prospects. What were some options here in Louisville at the time in 2012? Bourbon was in a great shape, but there was a lot of room for craft distillers to be out there. I think we're very much in that realm. We're what we call craft to scale. And it was essentially just kind of an organic thing for them. I think it was a business building. He had a lot of friends, a lot of associates here. We actually opened the facility in 2018. So that's the first liquid that we laid down. We're at a 6-year product now on all of our base or core products. So it was just kind of a natural feed between husband and wife, where they ended up, how the story kind of transpired. And really it's not only a labor of love, but it's kind of the story of the bourbon. So as you all probably may or not know, We have a very interesting take on mash bills. So if you talk about bourbon, it's either the barrel, it's the yeast strain, or it's the mash bill. For us, it's the barrel and the mash bill. That's really where we kind of go down the proverbial rabbit hole. We do a lot of funky stuff. As you all have tried, we have the high gold. That's a high rye, right? Not uncommon. But we malt that flavor grain. And I think that adds a very depth of complexity there. I think it adds a lot of character. And I think this is really what was in Kave's kind of mind's eye when he started this company, is how we're going to take tradition and not turn it on its head, but how we're going to manipulate it to make it not only modern, but kind of a reference back to history. So we're still retaining that kind of historical knowledge, but obviously progressing forward, right? So that's the goal here.
Yeah, and can you tell us a little bit more, and maybe dive into the malted rye and what makes that unique for this particular expression compared to, just rye in whiskey in general?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you all have had a lot of high rise. So rye is generally adding like a spice factor in there, typically speaking, depending on what the level is. Ours is, just so we're clear, our mash bill is 70% corn, 25% malted rye, 5% malted barley. That high rye is kind of a interesting realm. I would say anywhere for me between like 18 and 30% is considered like a high rye. So not uncommon there. You're getting a lot of black peppercorn. You're getting a lot of barrel spice. You're getting a lot of baking spice. Really what the malting is doing is kind of calming that down. Is the best way I can say it. It's a sweetness and a spice mix. So malting in the grain essentially is just letting it ferment and kind of interact with the water. So it's starting its sprout form, and then we're shocking it and leaving it in that essential kind of life cycle. And what that's going to offer us is a lot of nuttiness, a lot of biscuity, kind of bready notes in the most positive way, caramel, toffee, butterscotch. So it's adding that extra layer of depth and complexity, but also combining that in kind of juxtaposition with the sweet and spice. So it's just layering it in, essentially.
So if we were to taste a whiskey that had the same exact mash bill, but one is using malted rye and one's using, traditional rye, the main difference is that if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, the baking spices aren't going to be as prominent, and it's more balanced between baking spices and those sweeter characteristics. So it almost like blends into the corn a little bit.
Exactly.
Where it's going to be as I don't want to say polarizing, but it's kind of a little bit more mellow.
Yeah, I would say everything we do here is all about balance, right? And not to say that two opposite things don't work together. Two very like things may work together, but finding that balance is very, very important here. And I think the malting of that grain really adds to, like I say, the sweetness kind of coming down or the spice kind of coming up, and vice versa, really, right? Just adding to the flavor profiles that are already there. It's an interesting take on it, right? There wasn't a necessity to malt that rye, but that's where Cave really kind of thought outside the box and said, where can we really spurn something different from a flavor profile? And once we learned more, well, he in that time, the malting process is very cool and very intricate. But him learning about how they can have aspects on flavor profile, not just enzymatic properties, I think really kind of keyed him in to be like, all right, well, we can assist the corn in a way and kind of bring up that sweetness, where we can also kind of bring down some of that kind of black pepper spice that's in there. But as you'll see with single barrels, it's varying, right? So as long as you get a level of both of those things, but what we want to make sure is like the core product, the 95 proof high gold that's on your shelf every day, has that perfect balance. So the idea was to make sure that the single barrels can kind of go one direction or the other, right? Whatever you're preferring, whatever your palate's telling you.
Awesome. So if, visiting the distillery in May, I had been there once before, but only as just a guest. I went to the upstairs bar a few years back, and never had Rabbit Hole before, and then tasted it. And then that's kind of what how you got added to my list of distilleries I wanted to feature in the future. And here we are today. But I think if you, awesome, just to give everyone kind of a picture of the distillery compared to like the average, legacy Kentucky distilleries that are kind of out, in Frankfurt and Bardstown and those kind of legacy areas. You're kind of right outside downtown Louisville. It's a very modern building. How does being maybe how do you set yourselves apart from those kind of legacy older distilleries? And is the modern kind of architecture and obviously the art, I'm sure that's intentional, but can you talk to me a little bit about the thought process and behind, being a more modern distillery in Kentucky?
Yeah, absolutely. You said it correctly, Trevor. I mean, there's companies that have been at it for 150, 180 years, right? We don't have that background, that history behind us. So when you come into an industry like this, I think you really have to make a mark. One of our kind of slogans is original works of bourbon, or original artworks of bourbon. And I think that was really kind of Cave's idea. If you're not familiar with Louisville, we're kind of right in adjacent to the heart of downtown. We're in an area called Nulu, which has had a lot of resurgence in the last 10, 12 years. It's a beautiful neighborhood. The facility is very modern. It's a lot of juxtaposed light, metal, wood. It's got this kind of cathedral-like aspect to it when you go into the main distilling area where we have our fermenters and our actual still. So I think his idea was to kind of bring in the essence of Louisville itself. There's a kind of meandering path as you go through the facility, as you kind of go through our tour as well. That kind of harkens back to Louisville itself and the Ohio River being right here, and kind of naturally flowing through this area. Louisville wouldn't be here if it wasn't for what's called the Falls of the Ohio. So there's kind of this stair-step process that you go throughout the distillery. And it really harkens back to that tradition, that history behind the city itself. Great slogan at Angels Envy. I won't take it away from them, but thing I learned very early in my career, because I've only been with kind of modern distilleries, if you will. Revere tradition, embrace progress. And I think that really kind of speaks it all, right? We're not necessarily discounting the past. We're certainly taking that into account, but I feel like if we're not pushing things forward, if we're not looking at prospects, if we're not kind of looking at innovation in a larger scale, then we're discounting ourselves and the spirit itself, right? I mean, there's so many different things we can do with bourbon. And I think that really led myself to here because I'd already done a lot of finishing at Angels Envy. So this really kind of gave me the aspect of opening that door and being like, well, now you can do whatever you want. What kind of finishing barrels do you want to play with? What kind of proof points do we want to work with? What kind of grains do we want to bring in? So it really is a very experimental site. It's a huge lab, really, in a way. So it's a very cool place to come in to work every day. I kind of take it for granted sometimes, but you can see kind of the plethora of bottles behind me. But we've got a lot of expressions that we've done over the years, and I think that's really where we kind of stand in the whole hierarchy of bourbon, and very, very craft in a way. We're 15 barrel batches, so very, very small. That's a term that's thrown around a lot, I think. But yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell, I guess.
And it's all your own juice, correct?
It is. Yeah, absolutely. Same kind of background. We're very transparent. I'm happy to tell you we partnered with a great company out of Northern Kentucky when we first started back in 2012. So they were laying down some spirit for us while we kind of getting the wheels and the cogs moving here. But everything is made here in-house. Every juice you'll have in the bottle comes from Rabbit Hole Distillery. And there was a transition there for sure. Blending became really fun during that period, but there wasn't a huge shift, which I think is all you can do, is just trying to kind of save yourself from making these huge flavor shifts that you'll see. I mean, it doesn't matter if we had a distillery here and 5 feet next door, the spirit's going to be different. So making sure that the bottles that are getting to you guys consistently on the shelf, bottle after bottle, is really one of my huge goals.
So obviously we have a lot of members that have talked to master blenders before, but really quickly, for those that may not know, can you just give us kind of exactly what a master blender does and how that differs, say, from the master distiller?
Yeah, so really everything that I focus on is after the fact, if that makes sense. So to me, a master distiller is kind of from grain to kind of a new make kind of set point, even into barrel. So everything I deal with is barrel afterwards. So I work very closely with the distillation team, with Greg and David, who do an incredible job on distillation. In fact, I give them all credit. Like if they didn't lay down some great spirit in 2018, 2019, 2020, I would not have the juice that I'm working with now. So really all credit goes to them. I think it's a hand-in-hand relationship. You have to be in lockstep, or you're going to have a lot of varying flavor profiles out there over time. But essentially, what my job is to make sure, once again, that speaking against single barrel, right? Because the individuality of the barrel is certainly very important. But blending 15 or so barrels together to make sure that the bottle that you all may see in the core products, I do have one here because I was sipping on it before we got online. This is the High Gold core bottle, blue label, called the blue label. We can talk a little bit more High Gold later and where that name came from. But really the goal is to make sure that this juice is consistent day in and day out, bottle to bottle, shelf to shelf, liquor store to liquor store, right? I want to make sure that you all are getting the same product. And if it's different, it's going to be better, hopefully. So that is what one of my major goals was over the last 5 years that I've been here, is to age the product up. When I started, we were about 3.5 to 4 year blend. And we're just now over 6. So we're about 6 to 6.25. And depending on the product, the goal is to kind of hang at 6, continue to age up some of our single barrel offerings. And then we offer our Founders Collection at closer to that 8 to 10 year mark. So for a young company as us, I'm very proud of that. I found it a big achievement from the company as a whole to offer kind of a tiered level of products, only be in the industry for 12 years or so.
Awesome. As a blender, do you ever obviously we're tasting single barrels, and as you said, every barrel is going to taste differently. We're going to give our members an opportunity to put in the chat what they're tasting tonight, and then have you as many as we can get to. We're not going to be able to do all 7, but do you ever taste single, like when you're doing a blend? Do you ever have flavors that like say you have a barrel that has a very prominent vanilla, caramel, traditional bourbon flavors.
Yeah.
And you have another barrel that maybe has, I don't know what it is, but do you ever say if I have this barrel with these flavors, I'm looking for a barrel with these flavors to kind of help balance it out? Like, are there different flavors in different barrels that you feel complement or mellow each other out? And yeah, I guess that's the question.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good way to put it. In fact, I was blending at about 8:30 this morning, and what I'm doing is going through occasionally barrel by barrel, but a lot. In most occasions, it's lot by lot. So as that barrel is produced, by the way, we do about 20 to 25 barrels per lot. So if it were a regular blend, what I would be doing is kind of putting these in buckets. So if you were to see my desk, it would be very crazy and disheveled, but I'll have 40 or 50 lots in front of me, and I'll essentially come up with 4 or 5 different kind of flavor profiles that are generalized. So for High Gold, it may be, let's say, butterscotchy and malty. To me, those kind of pair together in a way, or caramel and toffee, or barrel spice and oak, or some categories may just be not for the blend. This doesn't feel like it quite fits right. So when I start categorizing, then I'm starting to separate lots according to the flavor profiles that I'm seeing. And then really it's just kind of addressing what we're trying to get out of it, right? I mean, if High Gold, in my mind's eye or the company's mind's eye, is this kind of caramel, toffee, malty, butterscotchy, citrus forward with a black pepper finish, then that's how I'm selecting my barrels or my lots in this case. When it comes to single barrels, if I'm going through these tastings and I am doing it across an entire lot, what I'm doing is literally saying this one is a huge standout and setting that to the side for people like you, Trevor, and other groups, and being like, okay, this one is entirely unique. I've tried 23 barrels of the same lot produced the same day, filled into the same type of barrel. Why is this one so different? I can't tell you all the science behind it, but I know that it's good. I know that it stands out. I'll set that to the side, and I'll make sure that it's paired with a group like you all, or in any kind of single barrel scenario that is a standout or a unique kind of offering.
Awesome. I want to get into some questions about kind of the art and the labeling, which I know has intrigued a lot of people. I do want to take a quick break because I made a mistake at the beginning and did just quickly forget to mention a couple things regarding the club that we have coming up that my marketing department is reminding me about. But we do have a Bourbon Heritage Dinner coming up in the month of September. We did give early access to our Whiskey Club members for that sale. Whiskey Club members will have early access up until September 1st, when that will go live to the public. So if you didn't, go look for that email if you're interested in attending the Bourbon Heritage Dinner in September. And then lastly, we have gotten some feedback from members about not receiving messages about the club. There was an email that was sent out regarding opting into SMS messages. I know everyone is like, oh, great, another text to my phone. But if you don't want to miss anything regarding the club, I do strongly recommend opting into the SMS messages so you don't miss any club announcements. So sorry for the quick. We'll just pretend this is a podcast and that was like the quick commercial break on Incogni or whatever things that people promote. But yeah, so Bourbon Heritage Dinner in September. And then if you got the email about opting into SMS messages, if you don't want to miss anything about the club, please go back and look for those emails. Yeah, sorry about that, Jake. But let's dive into and then, yes, our marketing department just put the link for the dinner into the chat on Facebook and YouTube if anybody's interested. So, Jake, let's talk about the art. Obviously, Alice in Wonderland themed, very eye-catching. I think this was created by Korean watercolorist Kasik Junwoo Lee, I believe is the name of the person. How did that kind of manifest, or how did that come to fruition as far as the theme? Obviously, rabbit hole. We talked about the story behind the name with, Kaveh getting into a rabbit hole. But can you talk to us a little about the art's inspiration? Because when you go to the distillery, it's not only something that's eye-catching on the bottles, but the art surrounding all throughout the distillery is very eye-catching. Even on the outside of the building, there's art. So tell us a little bit about the collaboration between the artist and why that direction.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and to be honest, Trevor, that's what kind of drew me to the brand. Just to give you all some kind of preface too in my background, I'm not a science background. I'm not a biologist, a chemist, an engineer. I'm a history major and an art history minor. But the history and the art behind, number one, this industry, and number two, this company, is certainly what drew me here. I mean, that's why I'm doing what I do. I think you can say certain things about palate and training and things along those lines. But really, when it comes down to it, that original works of bourbon really hit home with me. It certainly attracted me, this company. I think he was trying to break some barriers and bring down some walls. Tradition is important and great, but why have we had the same label for 80 years? Is there ingenuity? Is there artwork that can be attractive, that can complement a beautiful spirit as well? And I think that's really where Kaveh has kind of come into play. That's been an essence of this company since I've ever been here. I mean, even just looking at the regular labels, there's just a certain kind of artistic value to it, between the round jewel and all the specifics that go into it. I would say that it reflects very well among the company and the spirit itself. Once again, Kasik is a great artist. We've used them for several different labels. You can see several behind me as well. It's an exploratory opportunity, right? It's an idea to look into the spirit. A lot of times we'll do the tastings. We'll look at this year or this quarter's kind of like single barrel offerings and then try to cater that to an artist or to an essence. We've done some very kind of Pollock themed things. We have done some very kind of punk steampunky kind of auras, very geometric shapes. So I think the idea to allow the bourbon to tell you how it wants to speak has how Cave has treated this industry and treated this company. And it's just been a very proud thing to let people identify with the label, but then taste the liquid and be like, absolutely, like it's eye catching and palate catching, right? It has to have both factors, and that's really where the single barrel for us separates itself. There's three things: it's cask strength, it's custom art, and it's generally an extra age kind of element there. So you're getting kind of the best of the best, right? And like I say, as I'm going through these tastings and tasting these barrels, I'm setting things aside that I think very specifically stand out and are unique. And I think that really speaks to the spirit, but also the diversity of it, right?
I think that whiskey, a lot of people get so tied up in tradition, and obviously there's a big part of making whiskey that does require a lot of consistency and precision. But I think someone like yourself, being a master blender, that's where the art really comes into the equation. And I think you can make the same argument when it comes to making art. Like, you have to have solid technique. Like, you have to be able to know how to shade and how to draw lines. And again, there's so much artistic interpretation, but you have to have a foundation of technique. And it seems to me that, like, you guys have really embraced the artistic side of making whiskey. And yes, the technique and the consistency is important, but it's fun to see a brand really bring artistry to the forefront. And I don't think people all the time, me, obviously I love whiskey and a lot of our members do, but I think the average consumer maybe doesn't make the connection between art and making a spirit, and that making a spirit is an art within itself. So I really admire and love the approach and the philosophy that you guys are taking with the brand.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think it's a complete blend of art and science, right? I just tend to lean toward more the artistic side, but I think it really gives you a personal relationship with the spirit itself. It's something iconic. It's something you will remember. It's an emotional experience, right? Anytime you have spirits, that's what we're all talking about, whether it's with your close friend or somebody sitting beside you at the bar, it has to have an emotional kind of evocation. Otherwise, what are we really doing it for, right? So anyone that can draw artwork into something that we're having conviviality, communalism over, enjoying spirits together, I think that really kind of draws it all together, and it makes it appreciate it a little bit more. At least that's what I would hope.
That's awesome. And you had mentioned that you guys are is all the single barrel that all comes with custom art? Are they currently all in the Alice in Wonderland world, or I think you may have mentioned that you guys are doing art outside of that kind of theme?
We are the first, I would say 4 to 4 years or so. We're all Alice themed. This is actually a reverb of the very first bottle artwork that we released, but we did a color variation on this. So theoretically, the two color backgrounds that you'll see on the Alice will never exactly be the same hue. So once again, kind of a hearkening to this uniqueness. I'm trying to, I've got some other bottles back here behind me. Some of the really cool ones. A couple. This is a little more of that kind of interpretive art, but once again on the Alice in Wonderland kind of theme. So rabbit, but very different, right, than this more kind of like punk art kind of work, very modern, very interpretive. We also did a Romeo and Juliet theme. This was with our Derringer. So that is a PX sherry finished wheated bourbon. So a little more romantic there. I think that's very fitting. Probably 3 years ago, we did one that was called our Landmark series. So this is actually areas in Louisville, Kentucky that are very notable to us. This is the Palace, which is one of our famous venues. A lot of wonderful concerts and shows done there. So there's been some adaptations there, but I would say overall, Alice in Wonderland has been the theme. Going down the proverbial rabbit hole has kind of been the theme around this company for a very long time. We've dressed up under the Alice in Wonderland theme as well. So it's definitely a predominant thing here, but I think just the creativity and the ingenuity behind it is really the most important thing to take away.
So, a question just on the Alice. So, who are the more crazy visitors? The Disney adults who love Alice in Wonderland, or like the literary nerds that?
I'll tell you the craziest one that I've seen in here. I go
to Disneyland all the time with my 5-year-old. So,
one that comes directly to mind. There was a rabbit themed or a rabbit convention in Louisville, and I'm talking about like breeders of rabbits, so people that keep them as pets, people that do them, I assume, for food and sustenance, for entertainment. I guess they had got word of Rabbit Hole Distillery or just done some research. They were just downtown, like 5-6 blocks away from us, in like proper downtown, like down near Galt House. And we probably had 50 or 60 people in the gift shop that were just buying everything rabbit. And obviously there's some bourbon fans, but I think there was another extent of that kind of purchasing power there that they were leaning into. But it was an incredibly fun group to hang out with and talk to. That was probably one of the more interesting kind of off the wall groups that you would have seen in here, but they were loving it. They're decked out in rabbit everything, but they love the pins, they love the t-shirts, the hats, the bottles. So very, very theme oriented for them.
I didn't have rabbit enthusiasts on my list.
No, Will, I don't think we knew the conferences in town. I'm sure we have it marked on the calendar for next year.
Nice. So let's get into tasting again. If you are joining us live and want Jake, Master Blender from Rabbit Hole, to maybe give you some insight on the bottle that you have, go ahead and throw that in the chat. I'll try to see as many as possible and bring it up. I'm on the road and I forgot I have all my tasting notes from the when I selected these barrels, and I texted my wife in my scurry to get to my room. I was like, there's a notebook on my desk, page 5, open it up. It says Rabbit Hole, take a picture of it. And shout out to my lovely wife who texted my scribbles so I have my tasting notes as well. But let's start with the one I'm tasting tonight, which is barrel. This is, I believe, the lowest proof of all the bottles, and this was barrel.
Just give me the proof, Trevor, and I can.
Oh yeah, I don't think that's a barrel number. It's a proof 104.8. I think it may be when I tasted these, I think they were still in barrel, so the proofs may have adjusted slightly, but I'm pretty sure this was 104.1 when I tasted it, so it may have gained a little bit. But the one I'm tasting, and then everyone has their tasting notes. On the tasting notes, we always put in kind of just a bunch of different notes from all the barrels to give you a general idea. So as always, the single barrel, the tasting notes you have on your card you got may not match up exactly to what you're tasting, but Jake's going to walk us through a few of these. So I'll just give you mine, Jake, for this particular barrel that I tasted when I tasted it in Kentucky, and it's actually lining up pretty close to what I remember. I'm getting chocolate, nutty pecan, vanilla, and peach are my tasting notes for this one. This is the 104.8 bottle.
Sorry, just write a couple of those down. So I have notes as well, Trevor, but what I generally try to do for these, and I have reviewed them a little bit earlier, but I'm going to flip my book over and we're going to taste it. We're going to taste it together.
All right.
Because to your point, and also why you buy salt, just to give you a little, I'm not the science nerd, but I can tell you why you saw a proof change, is they have what's called obscuration. So they'll actually essentially burn off the alcohol and see what is left, and that's the solids. And that's where you're going to have a slight shift in proof. So everything that you tried here, I had just done on like a quick, what's called a snap DMA. So I'm just taking like a quick proof right off the top just to give you something to go off of. And then they get into the lab and do a little more scientific investigation on it. and come up with a little bit of a proof shift. But hopefully it's not too varying there.
Yeah.
So what I really wanted to do is just kind of try it with you guys, and we'll just kind of see how it goes. So I have notes. I've tried this barrel many times, quite a bit ago. Actually, just before I guess we offered them to you all, and then before that as well. But I just wanted to kind of go through and there's no right or wrong way to taste a bourbon. I don't like to be snooty and tell people how to drink. Drink however you want. But let's just talk through it, and you tell me. I get the peach. There's a lot of soft stone fruit. Peach, I'd say a little bit of plum. There's a juiciness to it. I like that it's a little bit of that lower proof. There's a little bit of soft oak. There's like a light custardy note there, almost in kind of a dessert fashion. Not quite confectionery, but very.
Yeah, I get like a brown butter, like a little bit of brown butter.
Yeah, exactly. I think that creaminess is really identifiable for me with Cave Hill, and I like those softer notes because a lot of that you'll get on the nose and even the palate will be accentuated on the finish. So I wouldn't be surprised if we go through this and we see some kind of like barrel spice, black pepper notes on the back end, but who knows? Let's see what we got. Some caramel and some toffee on there as well. I would say more so on that kind of like crisped toffee. Very approachable. Lighter notes, I would say it comes into that kind of traditional vanilla caramel, transitions a little bit more into that kind of slight baking spice note. I get a little bit of cardamom, a touch of nutmeg on the back end. It's got a great viscosity. It covers the palate very well. And just, I don't think we mentioned this earlier either, Trevor, but we fill everything at 110. So a 104.8 is not an uncommon proof. And in fact, I like them when they're a little bit in the kind of mid-range for me, even though the 109s and the 111s are fantastic. And that's really about some of the highest proofs you'll see from us. I think most recently, the most I've seen is about 114, where they will gain a little proof in certain areas. When they drop a little bit like this, it really makes them super approachable. Like I certainly get that kind of peach note. It even comes through on the back of the palate. It's got a really kind of long-lasting finish on the left to right of the finish of the palate. There's not that big spice note. I think I was speaking a little too soon there. To me, the custard still comes out. I think there's this kind of like light oiliness. In the most positive way. And it's got a beautiful kind of like creme brulee kind of finish to it.
I'm getting some like mint, some like bright mint towards the tail finish, which is quite nice as well. On the nose, I let it rest a little bit. On the oak, maybe like a dusty oak is popping a little bit more.
Almost say like a bit of a wet oak. I know that can be taken in a bad connotation, but to me, it just softens a little bit. It's not punchy, not spicy. I really like the subtleness of it. I think it's for a 104.8. It doesn't drink anything nearly like that. It drinks like a 95 or 100. And it's just incredibly approachable.
Let's do a few more. We might need some, if you want to reference your notes, just for time's sake, we may need to do that. But we have let's do 3 if we can. Sarah Steepleton is saying she's doing the 111.4 proof.
All right.
We'll do that one. And then Paul and Scott are saying they're doing the 110 proof. And then the last one, if we have time, we can do the 109.9. I don't know if I don't have, like I said, mine when I tasted the proofs may not have been exact. I do have a 109 proof, and I have a 110. The 111.4. I do have a 111.44. So let's start with the 111.4 proof and maybe give us a quick, maybe 3 or 4 tasting notes, and then we'll do the 110, and then we'll do the 109.9.
Sounds great. Let's do. Sorry, let me switch some glasses out real quick.
Oh, you're good. I mean, I wish I had them all in front of me.
Well, it did take some collecting today. I will say that there was a bit of effort behind this because in any manufacturing areas, things are just dispersed in the most unorthodox way. But we found them all, so very happy about that. This is the 111.4. Is that right?
Yeah, that's Sarah is drinking the 111.4, and so is Tyler Tang, and
yeah.
So.
A ton more barrel spice, toasted oak, a lot of like burnt caramel, burnt sugar, burnt brown sugar. It's a much different spirit, right? I mean, I think going back to that 104.8, it's incredibly on the other spectrum of what I would consider high gold. I wouldn't say that it doesn't have some of the same essences, but I think it's a much more bolder. To me, this is almost like tipping into like cigar bourbon. It's got a little bit of that sweet pipe tobacco kind of on the nose. But much softer on the palate. Man, it really calmed down a lot. More into that caramel, a bit of the nuttiness in there. When I say nuttiness, once again, I know they can be perceived as kind of a negative. To me, this is kind of like a walnut. It has an earthiness to it that I really appreciate, but nothing is super like astringent or savory or kind of going down that particular path. And finish is a little shorter on this one, I would say. It's not sticking with you. But yeah, just like a caramel toasted oak kind of bomb to me. Yeah, that one's fantastic. I really like that one. That was a good revisit for me.
All right, let's do the 110 one if we have. I think that will be the last one we do just for sake of time. Sorry we couldn't get to everybody's, but let's do the 110 one, and that's Scott McLemore and Paul Backman are into that one. So I wish we had time for all of them, but we got to talk about our 2 song selections, and then we'll get a Q&A from the audience, and we'll give away some prizes. So let's do the 110 if you can, Jake. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So 110.
I think for this one on 110, if it were the same one, I had a pretty strong oak presence on this one. I know it was probably the most oak heavy. Again, I tasted these back in May, so, and we tasted 12 different barrels. So, well, actually, we tasted 24 different barrels because we were doing Mary Dowling as well.
Yeah. Y'all had a.
So some of my notes towards the end may have been a little bit more. Not as extensive.
Falling off the page, maybe.
Yeah, I had oak and vanilla forward for this one were my 2 main notes.
I completely agree with those. It has this really nice kind of like dark fruit essence. I would say more like a plum. It goes a little bit into dried fruit. There's a touch of that kind of like fig prune in there, which I quite like. Yeah, vanilla, custard, just a wonderful kind of, I know you say barrel spice, and that's on the back end, like the back third of the palate, and it hits you a little bit on the nose, but it's just a nice kind of custard creaminess across the back to front half of the palate. It's very, very drinkable, very sessionable. This is a great one for a 110. I would say a little bit of earthiness on the back end, but very, very approachable. A little bit of that butterscotch note at the very finish.
Someone asked that I hold up the bottle. I don't have all the bottles, every single one. my camera's a little bit normally better because I'm in a hotel and doing this on my laptop, and normally I have my whole lighting set up. But anyways, this is the bottle we're tasting tonight. Awesome. Well, sorry we couldn't get to everybody's. But now my lighting's all messed up because there we go. Again, I normally do this at home and have better lighting, but let's get into your song selections really quick. So every month we ask our guests to select a couple song selections, kind of in the same vein as what Rabbit Hole does, which is embracing art and whiskey together. We like to. I love listening to music and feel that music and whiskey and art are all, they're all cohesive together. So Jake, you chose Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin and Waltz About Whiskey. I'll pour myself some more so I can pronounce words better. Waltz About Whiskey by Watch House. Can you tell us about those song selections and why you chose them?
Yeah, I mean, Led Zeppelin, I mean, in my mid to late 30s, but I was brought up in a household that listened to classic rock all the time. So all that has stuck with me throughout my life. Led Zeppelin's top 5 bands of all time for me. And this isn't exactly, it's one of my top songs, probably top 10, probably top 20. But specifically, I like this song because of High Gold. And I know the names can be a little confusing or misconstruing, but High Gold itself actually has a really cool history. So the word itself is actually a gentleman's last name. So Christian Heigold was a German immigrant to Louisville, Kentucky. I also have German background, German heritage, so immediate connection there. But Louisville, as you know, is some other kind of Eastern-oriented states were all about immigration and people pushing into this country in the 17 and 1800s. So in the 1870s, 80s, and 90s, Christian Heigold settled in Louisville, Kentucky, and established his kind of brickworking architecture firm here. So there's a lot of buildings here in Louisville that are actually attributed to Christian Heigold. And that's what the bottle and the spirit is really paying homage to. Also, Kaveh Zamanian, our founder, was an immigrant as well. Came from Iran in the 70s, fled the upheaval, ended up on the West Coast in California, actually, is where his family was based, brought him up there, and then he ended up moving to Chicago. But it's this story of not only immigration, but like this melting pot, right, that we're all kind of part of. And I think that really speaks true to the song as well as the spirit and what we all should kind of embody of like acceptability, acceptance. We're all in it together, right? I mean, I think, and that's really what the essence of a spirit does. A bourbon whiskey brings people together, right? I think that's really the idea of it. So, yeah, that's why I chose Immigrant Song, because we're all a story of immigrants in some form or fashion, right? I mean, unless you're completely derived from a Native American bloodline, then we're all here in some facet from another origin. So I think that's the coolest thing to me, is that spirits bring people together, and that's what they should do.
Love it. It's awesome. And then the other song choice you had, really quick, and we'll get into questions, was Waltz About Whiskey. That one might be a little bit more straightforward.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's just a whiskey song. I love Watch House. It's a husband and wife duo. If you're familiar with the name, I wouldn't say a aficionado by any means, but I'm like super into music. It's one of my big things. I listen to music from when I start blending at 8 or 8:30 in the morning till 4 or 5 o'clock at night, and go home, and then I start reading, and then back to music when I go sleeping. So music is just a huge part of my life. Watch House is a great band. They started off as a band called Mandolin Orange. Yeah, so you may be familiar with them. They're out of North Carolina. Husband and wife duo. People probably heard their songs and never realized it. They're in a lot of like commercials and early shows and things. But obviously Waltz About Whiskey is just what it is. If you listen to the song, he's just kind of in this like knockdown, drag out deal. He's going to the bar and he's going to tie one on. And I just think it's kind of like and I love folk rock, folk indie, folk alternate. So it's just a really cool kind of like go home from work and just kind of ease into things and I don't know, relax and take a break and sip your whiskey and have a waltz if you like around your living room, whatever pleases you.
I'm gonna listen to some Watch House tonight. I tell you that much.
Yeah, yeah. I've been listening to them all day actually. So
nice. All right, we're gonna do questions from the audience. Just for the sake of time, I don't want you to be limited with your responses, but maybe I want to try to get as many questions as possible. So please answer the question to your best ability, but I'd like to get through as many as possible. Sorry for the rush, but I know it's late there for you. You're 3 hours ahead.
Yeah, it's almost my bedtime, guys.
All right, let's get into it. Barbara Cole says she wants to know more about the collab with Blackened Whiskey. I believe, is that the Metallica?
Yes, that was a really cool collaboration. We did a like 10 or 12-year Tennessee
segue from music into that question.
Yeah, right. Perfect. Loved working with their blender. We had an amazing time pairing spirits together as a Calvados finish. So it was an amazing kind of opportunity to be able to mix not only spirit blending with music, with a finishing project, which is really kind of where my heart's at too. I think it turned out incredibly well. I wish I probably would have like put a little bit older spirit into that, but they had a 12-year Tennessee coming in. So like you really got to balance that out. So I used like a blend of 4.5 and 5-year high gold along with a little bit of cave fill to kind of like even the keel, if you will. So it wasn't super, super punchy. As you all know, Tennessee whiskey can be just like in your face. So yeah, it was a great collaboration. Love the time with them here. And I think we really kind of got the even kill on that and things to meet.
Awesome. Sarah Steepleton says, with your blending background, if you had access to any barrels in the world, what would you be most excited to work with?
Any barrels at all? I would probably go like something super weird with like some Japanese cherry wood finish or something. Right. It's a little dependent. Like I'm very intrigued by finishing. That's just always been kind of my thing, like how the finishing barrel can influence whiskeys. Yeah, I mean, it's weird because the door's wide open on everything now, right? I mean, it's all about innovation. It's all about how we can seek the next new thing. Calvados is one of my favorites. I've worked with Armagnac and Cognac a lot. I really like those flavor profiles. French oak is great. Mizanar is cool. I worked with a great company out of just south of Montreal, Moreau Cooperage. They did a maple brulee, which is a maple syrup barrel, but when they take the maple syrup out, then they actually use like a blowtorch and they literally fire char the inside of the barrel and caramelize the sugars. So that was an incredible barrel to work with, not like spirit per se. It's maybe not the direction of the question, but a really cool kind of like cooperage to work with, and like creating spirits was incredible with them.
Yeah, we did speaking of maple brulee, we did we selected a maple brulee barrel from one of your neighbors, Nulu Whiskey. Earlier this year, Chase over there. Shout out to Chase.
Ollie's great to work with. He's awesome, close friend.
Awesome. Scott McLemore asks, do you feel the experimental creation you get to do there at Rabbit Hole makes it more personal than other traditional distilling and maturation?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think looking through my career, being at Copper and Kings, where I really started, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they did some funky, crazy beer barrel finishes back in the day. I think
they did Dark Lord, I believe.
That's
awesome.
I was there during the get-go, and that's what really kind of sparked this idea in me. I was like, oh my God, this industry has so much breadth to it. Like, we have so many things we can do that we're not just beholden to tradition. And then obviously moving on to Angels and then going through a lot of the finishing projects there. I mean, that's the cool, like, once again, history majors. So love the history, love the tradition, very much revere that, but the adaptability and and the nuances we can put on bourbon with finishing casks, or in our case, like specialty grains, or even barrel types like chars and toast levels. Like those are all kinds of crazy combinations that you can work through flavor profiles with, and that's the art of it to me. I mean, once again, not being a science guy, being an artistic and history-minded person, that's really where it comes into play.
Awesome. Linda Archer says, "What is your favorite Founders bottle and why?"
I would say the first release that we did of Mizunara, and that's ironic because I wasn't even here when we laid it down. I walked in the door the day that they were bottling it, and they literally said, "Put your bottling gloves on, put your glasses on. We're bottling Mizunara." And that's because it's so cool to work for a company like this, because we are very small. We are very concentric. We are a lot of people wear a lot of hats here, so it is all hands on deck. So that's the one that I'm probably like physically most attached to, because my shoulders hurt after that, and corking bottles and putting on TE caps and all that stuff. So I have a direct relation there. The Navalier is incredible. If you like French oak, Navalier is fantastic. Definitely try that one.
Nice. Sounds amazing. Let's see here. Robert Beal says, "Whiskey in general is an art specific to the region it is prepared. What made Rabbit Hole choose the location of its distillery and warehouse?"
Distillery itself, I think Cave saw this as an up-and-coming area. Like say Nulu 10, 12 years ago was nothing that it is now. In fact, I would probably be a little bit scared to be down here. But in the last 10 to 15 years, it has come a long way. He has been there from the get-go. We have had a lot of kind of ups and downs, both on political levels and social economic levels that have happened here in Louisville. But we have ridden out the storm. People have essentially kind of banded together with companies like this. So that's been incredibly important. I'm sure that's kind of why he picked this location. He also did well because he was very inspired by the ability for this area to grow and to prosper. So he picked correctly. Beautiful view of the river too. If you ever get to go to Overlook Bar, it's a great kind of cityscape that you'll see. I know, Trevor, you've seen it out there.
Yeah, it's a great location. A beautiful distillery. Veronica Barajas asks, "Given full artistic control over the blend, what would be your ideal bottle tasting notes and artwork for the bottle?"
I guess ideal is hard to specify, right? Because it's all palate to palate, person to person.
Just for you though.
For me, I love high gold. High gold is the bee's knees to me. I love the slight nuttiness. I know, once again, like keep bringing it up, but like people like nutty, and they're like, that's peanut shell nutty. This is like almond, toffee, walnut, like roasted walnut, like praline pecan, like that kind of nuttiness is like beautiful to me. It's got this wonderful butterscotch note. I think, Trevor, you mentioned some of those kind of herbal notes that come on the back end, the black peppercorn, like crushed black peppercorn on the back end on these more intense high gold options are just incredible. And that soft oak custard on the nose, like it's just got this beautiful kind of journey through the spirit and this breadth to it that I just don't think is necessarily in everything else. And it really does come down to kind of that malting of the grain. So yeah, I think that's my favorite. My second favorite would probably be Derringer. That's our PX sherry finish. That's kind of my baby as well. That's only a 10-barrel blend, so we have to be super specific about that. And there's no margin for error there. But I love cask finishing. It's 100% PX sherry finish, and it's phenomenal. It's like dark stone fruit, plum, fig, raisin, all these cool things.
What about the
artwork? My favorite, I don't know if we have it here or not.
You don't have to. It's your bear. You can choose any art you want.
Oh God, I don't know. Shoot. I don't know, probably something harkening back to like Eastern Kentucky, like where I'm from, like where I was born and bred. There's an interesting area called the Red River Gorge. I'm not sure if people are familiar with that, but it's a highly desirable area, especially for climbers and hikers. And I essentially grew up there. On Sunday afternoons, growing on hikes with my parents, listening to music. They weren't big whiskey people, but these are just kind of some things that I attribute to my childhood and where I'm at now and some of my memories. So if I could do some type of like cool specialty artwork, ideally like statewide, would be really cool, but like something with the area of Eastern Kentucky, bluegrass, Appalachian Mountains, Red River Gorge would be killer.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you to our members for all the questions. As always, I wish we could get to all the questions that were asked. But Jake, I can run through the questions again, just to kind of a recap, or if you had a couple that stood out to you that you know about, and then you choose your top two. I'll be the bad guy. I'll choose the first and second place winners.
Okay.
You feel good.
Do I just need to scroll through some of these?
No, I'll recap them for you.
Yeah. See if you can.
Barbara Cole asked a question about the blackened whiskey. Sarah Steepleton asked the question about what if you had access to any barrels in the world, what would you choose? Scott McLemore asked a question about experimental creation at Rabbit Hole, more personal than other traditional distilling and maturation. Linda Archer asked if your favorite Founders bottle. Robert Beal asked a question about the location of the distillery and warehouse. And then Veronica Barajas asked the question about full artistic control, ideal tasting notes, and what artwork you would choose for the label. So those were the questions.
Yeah, I think I'll go with like the artistic experiential question for however you want to dictate. I'll let you choose, but artistic experiential kind of difference as to why Rabbit Hole does what it does, what the ethos is. And then probably second would be like pick any barrel that I could, because that's a really cool question. Like I haven't thought about that to that extent. It really boggles the mind as to all the options out there.
All right. Awesome. I'm going to go with the experimental creation question, just because I feel like that kind of is really what Rabbit Hole is all about. And if you go to the distillery and see the building and the architecture, and I feel like experimental and pushing the envelope, whether it be through art and labels or the whiskey they're making in general, is really what embodies Rabbit Hole amongst just making amazing product. So Scott McLemore, we're going to send you that bottle of the Founders Collection. Sorry, just to make sure. Sorry. That's what it was, right? Yes, the bottle Founders Collection series signed by our founder Kaveh Zamanian. And the second place question was what barrels you could have. That's going to go to Sarah Steepleton. So Sarah will send you the Rabbit Hole Entertainment set with the cutting board, the cheese knives, the apron, and the bar mat. Jake, thank you so much. I appreciate you rolling with the punches before the call today with my situation, being in the back of an Uber while I ran to my hotel room getting this set up.
Good, man. We know how that goes.
Yeah, but again, thank you everyone for being a member. Again, we have that Bourbon Heritage Dinner coming up in September. Our Blanton's single barrel is being released next month. And again, if you want to opt into the SMS messaging so you don't miss any announcements, please look out for that email. Jake, I know it's late there. Thank you once again, and we appreciate the time. And thanks for making phenomenal product. And I know all our members really enjoyed the bottle this month.
Of course, yeah. Thank you all for having us so much. We really appreciate your time and your commitment. And if you ever find yourself in Louisville, come check us out downtown, New Lou area. Ask for Jake, and we'll talk bourbon and blending.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a good night. Cheers.
Yeah. See you.